This is my reaction to the UFC 273 press conference, which just took place, and it featured Alexander Volkanovski, the Korean Zombie, Khamzat Chimaev, Gilbert Burns, Aljamain Sterling, Petr Yan, and for some bizarre reason, Mackenzie Dern, Tecia Torres, and even Jon Anik were at the press conference as well. I'm going to go through some of the highlights and give my reaction to it, and break down what I noticed in the press conference, and I'm also going to talk about some of the things I didn't like about the press conference, because again, I'll start with this immediately actually, because it really did annoy me. This is the biggest fight promotion on earth. Do the face-offs. We do face-offs at the end of every press conference. The fighters have just got into it with each other on the microphones. Now's the best time to do the face-offs and have them say some stuff to each other face-to-face. But no. Why did we not have the face-offs at the end of the press conference? The only thing I can imagine it being is because Dana White wasn't there. But Dana White, it's not like he's like an expert facer-offer. Stand someone in between two fighters. You've got loads of security men around you that can stop them from fighting each other as well. Dana White's a reasonably large man, but at the end of the day, a promoter. Just because he's not there, we can't do a face-off at the press conference between Aljamain Sterling, Petr Yan, Khamzat Chimaev, Gilbert Burns. Alexander Volkanovski at the end of the press conference had to volunteer and say, wait, before the end, let's give people what they really want and do me versus the Korean Zombie and have a little bit of a face-off. And then at one point as well, Aljamain Sterling stood up afterwards and said, me versus Petr Yan as well. Petr Yan, come over here. And Yan starts walking towards Aljamain Sterling and the whole feed just cuts off before we even get to see the face-off. Inexcusable. Get Li Jingliang to stand between the fighters, Dana White. If you don't want the face-offs to happen because you're not there, Li Jingliang was in the room. Have him stand between the fighters. He's even more qualified than you are, perhaps, to stand between two fighters and stop them getting to each other. Unless, I guess, Khamzat Chimaev really wanted to get a Gilbert Burns, then maybe Li Jingliang would be on the receiving end of round 2 of smashing against Khamzat Chimaev, because I don't know what Li Jingliang was doing there, but it was a great business move, a great promotion move, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. Let's start straight away with the opening of the press conference. I've seen the footage of Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan, by the way, on the Mac Life and stuff like that, where they actually did try and get at each other, and they were just stopped by multiple people, and you know, that was something. So I have seen that they tried to get at each other, and I've seen the footage before people start saying that in the comments. I've seen the video and stuff. But let's start at the start of the press conference. Khamzat Chimaev playing solitaire instead of answering questions at the start of the press conference. I thought it was a bit weird at first because I was thinking, oh my god, is he going to play this whole shtick of just being on his phone the entire time at the press conference? But no, he answered questions eventually at the press conference and just mentioned that he wanted to kill Gilbert Burns, which apparently is completely okay for Russians to say because I guess their vocabulary is so limited that media members just completely allow them to make those killing references, but when others do it, it's a bit risky, you know what I mean? But Russians seem to have a free pass when it comes to threatening death of their opponents. Either way, playing solitaire at the start. Burns was on his phone as well, so I was worried that they were just going to be on their phone the entire time, but maybe they were playing solitaire against each other, who knows? But yeah, they eventually came off their phones and started having some good moments on the microphone, but we went immediately after that with Khamzat Chimaev to Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan. Aljamain Sterling was swearing in Russian and talking to Yan, shit-talking Yan in Russian and using Russian words and stuff like that. And Petr Yan actually had some really good one-liners back at Aljamain Sterling, like, we know who the real champ is, and he got the crowd involved, and all the crowd were really happy about it, and he was talking about how Aljo's pathetic and all this kind of stuff, and how he's going to beat him and end him this weekend and kill him this weekend and all that kind of stuff. And he also mentioned that Aljamain Sterling's cornermen, like they referenced that because of course earlier this week Yan said if he sees any of Aljo's cornermen he's going to go right after him, and Aljo is mentioning that at a press conference, and Yan actually said something like Sterling's corner is just realtors and a ginger who likes to talk too much. Petr Yan going after the gingers, one of the highlights of the press conference, I guess, and they had some moments back and forth with each other, but that was sort of the end of Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan's talk. Aljamain Sterling seems very confident, but I will say this about Aljamain Sterling. He seems angrily confident, like annoyed. Yan seems cool, like he's just like, oh yeah, well, we're going to fight this weekend, and we will see, and I'm going to beat you this weekend and stuff like that. And he didn't seem to be emotional in any way and just seemed to be his calm, usual self. Just barely looking at Aljo a couple of times at the press conference. But Aljamain Sterling was like really trying to get into him and trying to get his eye contact and stuff. And he was almost like emotionally saying that he was going to go out there and win, and he was getting himself amped up about it and stuff like that. So if he wins, it's going to look really cool. If he loses, it's going to look really bad, because even like trying to play a bit of a heel, he's just not good at it, and there's no flavor or personality there from Aljamain Sterling whatsoever. It's rough. Like, he's just a boring little fucking cunt. If he wins, I'll be extremely depressed over the next couple of days after the fight. Either way, we move on. Volkanovski being generic Volk. He's going to do what he does. Go out there and win. Maybe the Holloway fight next. Says how good, great of a champ he is. And he is a good champ. You know, he takes on the next up-and-comer. He doesn't call for money fights or anything like that too much. He likes to take on the next most deserving guy in his division. And I respect that from Alexander Volkanovski. And the Korean Zombie was having some funny moments back and forth with him. They were very friendly with each other. At one point, the Korean Zombie pulled the race card about Asian fighters not getting like the same opportunities as other fighters in the UFC. But in reality, they do, but they just go to ONE FC, that other promotion that like runs Eastern Hemisphere of MMA, and they just get all the Asian fighters and talent pretty much. And you know, some promotions like Rising pay their fighters like a Kai Asakura more than some of the other promotions in UFC and stuff like that. So obviously they might want to stay over there rather than go over to the UFC. And then you've got other stuff like KSW even in Europe that does the same thing. Like, they're paying Roberto Soldic a lot of money, and the UFC's at the moment trying to beat his contract and stuff like that. So like, I don't know why he pulled the whole idea that, you know, Asians don't get the same. I feel like they'd want Asians. They want to control that market and beat ONE FC in that market. So I feel like they'd want to, like, get Asians in the UFC. But whatever, he went down that avenue. He was funny other than that, though. Really good jokes that he was making. Like, they were joking back and forth. I think he went after Monster Energy Drink at one point, saying that his own zombie energy drink is going to sell out in the stores of Walmart and stuff like that. And they were being nice to each other. He was talking about how he might twister Volkanovski, and Volkanovski was talking about how his body type isn't quite the body type to be getting twisted because of how short and stocky he is and stuff like that. But then we move on. Burns and Chimaev going back and forth. Just Chimaev being aggressive and homicidal towards Gilbert Burns. And Gilbert Burns going blah, 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 like most people do at these press conferences because of the amount of personality that they have. And that seems to be the go-to phrase that they go for. Just blah, 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 when someone's trying to talk. And it's cool. Gilbert Burns at one point did an impersonation of Khamzat Chimaev. Gilbert Burns made me laugh a couple of times. Chimaev actually at one point got a little bit aggressive and like slammed the table, and then Gilbert Burns went like, "Oh, he slammed the table, guys," you know, which was kind of funny from Gilbert Burns, I guess. And then Khamzat Chimaev actually got under his skin at one point. He mentioned that Gilbert was crying after his loss, and Burns was like noticeably kind of pissed off about that, like, I can't believe this guy's bringing all this stuff up. I thought we were going to be cool, because they seemed kind of cool in their sort of hotel interaction. And then Chimaev just sort of turned it up to 11 here and was extra aggressive towards Gilbert Burns. So that happened at the press conference as well. But other than that, there wasn't too much between those two. But that's the sign of a good press conference, in my opinion. If there's interactions between both of the fighters, that's always a good sign. Li Jingliang made a feature. I mentioned it earlier. That was a really good thing. Great for him. Good promotion for him as well. He gets in there, gets his name out there, asks Khamzat Chimaev a question about how he's going to beat Gilbert Burns, asks Gilbert Burns about how he feels about being an underdog and stuff like that, and even asked the Korean Zombie a couple of questions about his matchup as well. Like, Li Jingliang, Lee Okamoto, had some of the better questions at the press conference compared to the other dumbass MMA media members that were up there. I was hoping at one point after Li Jingliang that Darren Till would jump up on the microphone and have some questions to ask or something like that. But either way, that was another thing that happened. Zombie having some fun moments of cheekiness towards Volk. They were joking back and forth, being very friendly with each other and saying how old he feels and stuff like that, because of Volkanovski saying that he just started his career when the Korean Zombie had been fighting Aldo for the belt and stuff like that, and he was mentioning how old he feels and stuff like that. So that was a cool little light-hearted moment that they were having. Volk being generic and saying he's going to win and he's on another level and all that kind of stuff. Aljo was like begging for another question so he can have another dig at Yan and stuff like that. And Yan was just so focused on his hatred of gingers that he couldn't like see anything else and we didn't get any more from Yan and Aljo. Instead, Mackenzie Dern had some really cute trash talking, I guess. Listen, I don't think women's trash talking has ever been good, but Mackenzie Dern did it in a good way. She was saying it so obviously out of character, and you could see it on her face. She was just like, oh, come on, let's have a bit of fun with a bit of trash talk of our own. Like, what happens if I take you down, with a big cheesy grin on her face? And she just wanted to see what the response of Tisha Torres would be. And they were like going back and forth and being quite respectful to each other. And that was like I know women's MMA trash talk can be quite cringy. Like, I remember Tisha Torres and Angela Hill's trash talk was pretty cringy, but that was cool. Mackenzie Dern was pretty cute about it, and I thought that was a cool moment in there as well. No face-offs, again. But one thing I do want to mention is Petr Yan is on stage. No mercy. Everyone wants to hear from him in these environments. He's finally starting to speak English at some moments in the press conference as well. He's speaking English at some moments, trying to sort of get across some English towards Aljamain Sterling about how he's a crybaby and he shouldn't have won the belt, all that kind of like regular stuff. He's going to beat him up on Saturday and stuff like that. But I do want to say this. Jon Anik got more questions than Petr Yan. Aljo got less questions than Jon Anik. Tisha Torres had like 4 or 5 questions. Yan had 1. No one gives a fuck about Dern versus Torres. Fair enough, it's a good fight, and I'm actually looking forward to it. It's a decent matchup. Compared to how much they care about Aljo Yan and Chimaev Burns, and even at a push Volk Ortega, or Volk Korean Zombie, sorry, no one gives a fuck about Tisha Torres. Don't ask her 5 questions and only ask Yan 1 question. We've had about a year of beef between Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan. This was supposed to be the big press conference where they went back and forth non-stop at each other, and we had an amazing amount of trash talk between them and built the fight up even more than it already was. 1 question for Yan, and dare I say, was it even a question for Yan? I think Yan just jumped in on an Aljo question at one point. Maybe he did get 1 question, but 1 question for the champ, Petr Yan? This beef with Aljo, building for a year, this was the moment where they can go back and forth. And you ask 4 questions to Tisha Torres about where she thinks she'll be in the rankings after this win. Like, we don't fucking know. How does it feel to be from Puerto Rico? Ask Yan a question now. I'm losing my mind, is how I felt in some of those press conference moments. Either way, I guess we got a bit of a ish face-off at the end between Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie. Yan and Aljo had to be separated from each other as well. That's going to be a great matchup. And I guess we're going to have to wait for the face-offs tomorrow at the weigh-ins, unfortunately. I was really looking forward to them today, but they didn't do them because they're only the biggest fight promotion on the world. And only Dana White can separate fighters because he's a promoter. So we can't do it otherwise. It's also really weird to see Jon Anik speak when he's not doing commentary, because he speaks in a commentary voice, you know, like it sounds like everything he says just as a sentence is a moment of commentary, you know what I mean? It's very weird to see him out of his element like that, but, you know, it was all good. The press conference was okay. I give it like a 5 out of 10. There were some decent moments between the fighters back and forth and stuff, but other than that, another shitty UFC press conference that was like 30 minutes long. Champs get 1 question. Tisha Torres gets fucking 4 or 5. Jon Anik gets like 3. It's just, don't know what these media members are doing. I don't understand at all. Aljo's like trying to build up some confidence in himself, and maybe there's like a bit more belief in Aljo because he does seem pretty confident, but he seems like angrily and emotionally confident as well. So we'll see how it goes. It's just UFC press conferences. They're usually a letdown. Unless Covington's in one, and only some Covington press conferences, unless Marvin Vettori or Paulo Costa are there, unless McGregor's there, but even McGregor's last press conference wasn't too fun, so yeah. Never really, like, amazed by these. They never do amaze me. I miss Conor McGregor back in the day, man. Those go big press conferences, the red panty night shit. You don't know what a good thing is until it's gone. You know what I mean? And I remember watching those thinking, this is every press conference? And even like the massive press conferences that they had between, I think it was the Go Big Summer press conference where they had Anthony Smith, John Jones, that I think it was UFC 235, Jones versus Smith, Askren versus Lawler, Usman versus Woodley. That was a great press conference. Garbrandt versus Pedro Munoz was on that card as well. That was a good press conference. I like those types of ones, but this one just didn't have that spice. Didn't have that seasoning. You know what I mean? Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.